Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike, and today we're going to go into changing your identity through practical methods that were taught in esoteric teaching and modern day science. So, for you people that are new to this channel, there's a lot of content that's very similar to this. And I've studied a lot of different philosophies and tried a lot of techniques. And there's so much content out there that a lot of people are getting confused. So for me, I want to share with everything I concluded and how to put it into a formula that works. And a lot of things, it's more that are more effective are less doing and more allowing. So with that being said, for you, a lot of people, this is a channel that is about consciousness, expanding awareness, and applying your perception in real life. So that way you can experience life through a better lens and have a better operating system. Okay, so this also ties into manifestation channels too, and they give you a lot of techniques. But the problem is that, and I'm sure you've seen it before, it's a lot of stuff that causes friction because you have these techniques where you imagine something, you think it, you feel it, and then people are waiting for it to happen and it doesn't. And it doesn't matter really how much you feel something into reality if the thoughts are counteractive, meaning counterproductive, and your identity is not matching what it is you're trying to bring into reality. So it's causing resistance. So whatever is being done in the field is not making it to reality because there's blockages. And the thing is, we have a lot of techniques like trying to brainwash yourself through affirmations and talking, and people are pulling their hair out and going crazy and wondering why it's not working. So people say, oh, you need to change your beliefs, you need to do this. And that's true, you do need to change your beliefs, but they're not told how to do it. There's no point in telling someone to do something if you can't give them the steps how to do it and understand how to do it and why they're doing it and why it works. So identity is who you are when you're stripped of your emotions and your thoughts. So a lot of people think they are their thoughts and they are their emotions, but that's not true. A lot of your thoughts are negative thoughts and they come from your subconscious mind and things that you identify with your past self, past experiences, or things that people told you over time that were programmed into your mind from childhood till now, or wherever you were exposed to a lot of brainwashing. Could be anything: parents, friends, school, even your pastor, unfortunately. So with that being said, we must understand that we are not our thoughts and our emotions. And why I say we're also not our emotions is because emotions, they fluctuate. We call that, in science, we understand it to be, they oscillate. If anybody who is Isaac Bentov, I don't know if he said his name right, the brilliant inventor and engineer who really had a passion for spirituality and consciousness more so than he did his own inventions. If anybody would like to research him, he died in a plane crash, unfortunately, and the CIA published a lot of his work in their files. But we're not going to get too far into that. That's for another day. But he explained how we are oscillators and our emotions are oscillating into the field. Let's say like an antenna, and we're broadcasting things, similar to what Tesla said. And, we can get into that stuff another day. So I want to stay on topic with identity and the tools that we need to do to actually change our identity. So if you're watching up to this point, we understand that you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions, okay? Emotions come and go. One day you're happy and next day you're sad. Thoughts, you have positive thoughts and you have negative thoughts. And unfortunately, with thoughts, from the consensus, and what I understand is we have more negative thoughts. So today, we're going to go over on how to make this change. And yes, it does take effort. It's not automatic. Are there techniques that help this become more automatic where it's not as much effort? Yes, but first we're going to apply the effort. Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to go over some esoteric teachings that really helped me learn this. And the one which is the first I started with is Kabbalah. For any of you who don't know what Kabbalah is, it's not a specific religion. It is rooted out of Judaism. Some call it Jewish mysticism. It has been altered over the years, so people identify it with other forms or teachings, and it can get way out there. But we must understand that Kabbalah is basically a map of consciousness, and I'm going to draw a picture and explain how this works. We are not going to get into a super deep lesson about Kabbalah, because that cannot be done in one teaching, and I myself am not a master, but I do understand the important teachings of it. Let me drink some water. Go, I think right here I see there's a glare. Okay, so Kabbalah, we understand the emanations, and also recommended to be what we understand the Sephirot. Okay, so here we start with the highest consciousness, which is our higher mind, also where God is located. Okay, you must know that God is not out there anywhere. He's part of you. He's source. He's all that is. He's also located at what they call the 0 point axis. He's the crown right there is where you meet him. Or, you know, he's, some people say genderless, but I don't want to get too far into that. So they call that, he calls God Ein Sof. Ein Sof is all that is, okay? Now I'm going to finish the tree. That is the Kabbalistic tree. It's not the best drawing, but we get the idea. So this teaching right here is also understood to be you are God and God is you. It experience itself as in a fraction of a human, or you are the universe, or you are the universe itself experiencing itself. Now, I don't want to get too mystical, and I'm not literally saying you are God or whatever you deem God to be, but we must understand that there is no separation. There's an illusion of separation, but we're really not separated from Source. So that must be understood here. And that is called all right. The next one is from a book called the Kabbalion, the Three Initiates, and we understand that to be the 7 Hermetic Principles. So this would be Hermetic. That would be the practice of Hermeticism, and it's also known to be the Kabbalion. Okay, so let's break it down. I'm going to start out with the Kabbalion because it's a little simpler in the sense that it breaks down reality into the planes of existence. We have the mental plane, the physical plane, and the spiritual plane. And what both of these teach is self-mastery through emotions and thoughts. So we're going to treat a thought as a signal. An emotion is energy. E equals MC. Pretty easy. So we're going to label these a little bit differently. Okay. Now, the Kabbalion, it teaches that you need to master these things, okay? So that way reality rearranges around your state of being, who you are. And Kabbalah is the same way, but it references it more to when you master thoughts and emotions. We remove blockages. Both teach to master these things, but Kabbalah more references it to you're doing this to remove blockages so that the divine creator can bring forth down what it is you desire into reality without the illusion of separation or thinking you have to suffer to do things or outwork everybody as if you're not worthy. And by being true to yourself and bringing source back to yourself, you're aligning your sign with the Creator's will to bring things up from above down into the physical plane, reality. So when we master thoughts and emotions, that's when things become less resistant and we have more flow. Hermeticism teaches that, but in a way that it's more consciously applied in specific situations, and that you're making this mental awareness in any circumstance and situation so that when you practice this, you're seeing it as a game that you're playing. So you're looking at life from a game, and that, you're not taking things personally, and that you're separating your identity from thoughts and emotions. That way you can operate in this game and have a better experience in reality to bring forth what it is you desire. So we understand this is more applicable in Kabbalah. This is more for alignment and removing blockages to allow flow. They both teach the same thing, but I would say Kabbalah is more understanding the inner self and everything, as Kabbalah teaches you have a vessel, and every time that you go through something, this vessel expands for you to reveal more light within yourself and other people, which is great because both of these are great for accountability. So the more that we take accountability for our actions and things that we think we're not necessarily all the way completely guilty of or should be on us, the more power we have. So both of these teach that you can either have reality happen through you or to you, and you want it to flow through you. So what it is, if you don't like what you see on your outside, you always reflect back on the inner. So once you change the inner frequency in yourself, that's when you see reality rearrange itself to your state of being. Like Bashar says, circumstances don't matter, only state of being. And those are powerful things, because when you know that, it stops the illusion of you thinking you can alter outcomes by manipulating people or controlling people or being involved. And a lot of people, they just keep digging themselves in a digger hole, or, they end up having more of a mess when really the best thing they could have done was sit back and do nothing. Isn't that beautiful that sometimes the best thing is to do absolutely nothing? Okay, now let's get into it on how to apply this. So we already understand that a thought is a signal. So how do I apply that in real life? A lot of us get thoughts from our thoughts of the past and things that we don't prefer. And people will get themselves trapped in a thought. It'll take them somewhere, and then it'll bring their vibration down by them being identified with an emotion that they don't prefer. And that's not good. So what we want to do is, when there's a thought we don't prefer, we make the conscious effort to say to ourselves, this is a signal. We separate our identity from that. So we're literally making a space, and that's where awareness comes in, because we're aware of the thought, but we're not giving it any power. We're not going deeper into the thought. It's just a signal. So we're actually going to apply that by consciously doing that. So when you get a thought, let's say, a lot of people, let's say you're at home, somewhere more private, close your eyes, take a deep breath, relax your nervous system and say, this is just a signal, and start practicing that. Okay, so right then and there, you're making a separation, and there is the awareness that occurs within yourself of separating yourself, your identity, from the thought. And by doing this, this is where we're expanding our consciousness. And this is a great thing, because this is expanding consciousness is what we need to do if we want to experience a more preferred reality. So we understand a thought is a signal, okay? And emotion, we have feelings that are labeled as angry, sad, this and that. And when we identify with that, that's when it hijacks us and we do things that we regret. And when we act on emotion negatively, that is what we call the ego, the lower self. So that's the very reactive thing. So because we are into the illusion of that's of our identity, and somebody says something to offend us, and we argue, and even though we think we're defending ourselves, we're really just defending our ego, not our true selves. So that's where awareness comes in. So I don't even want, or don't recommend people to even label the emotion, because then it gives an identity, because it is energy. Just think about it. Like if you didn't put a label on an emotion, it's just something you feel. So how to apply this? Okay. Let's say you read a text message and it was somebody that was close to you, and you feel, okay, just to make this more reasonable, anxiety about it, or there's a certain way, a feeling that you don't prefer. You consciously make the effort to let it flow. It's like Bruce Lee said, be like water. So pretend you're a rock and you're going to stay grounded and you're going to let that energy flow, okay? Don't let it take you. Don't let it hijack you. So this is where, if you're at home, you'd practice, you'd say, I let this flow. I let this pass. In Kabbalah, they would specifically say, I build this to the Creator. I give this to you. And what light can I reveal about myself? So Kabbalah goes a little step further with saying, what light can I reveal about myself? Or what negative belief is this bringing to the surface? This is great. Okay? So we understand at this point, we're separating our identity from thoughts and emotions. We're labeling emotion as this energy and a thought as a signal. And we're not going to give it too much emphasis on the descriptive on what it is. It's just energy that needs to pass. So think yourself as like a human battery or energy source instead of identifying with emotions and thoughts. Okay, so that is the conscious effort. When you take the time out of your day and just reflect back on that, you make that separation. Is it going to reprogram you right away? No, but I would say within a few days to a week, you're going to see things start changing. Your vibration is going to be higher. You're going to be broadcasting better signals and better things that are more representative of who you are. Because reality, as we know, doesn't give you what you want, gives you what you are. So if you're broadcasting a signal of lack or I don't have, you're going to keep getting more reminders of that. So a lot of people, I think they have a negative belief system with money or value. So by catching these things or making awareness, we're making the space in which we can expand consciousness and now build a better baseline frequency and vibration for ourselves. Now, it's something that needs to be done frequently. So these are the techniques that are important that help change your identity, because reality itself forms to your true identity, not who you are emotionally at the moment, not super strong imagination or visualizing something till you got veins popping out your forehead, or passion. Believe it or not, to reality itself is a neutral. So when people are out here thinking that the more passionate and excited they are, the more they're repelling things. It's actually when you're peace and you're calm, that's where you have better flow. And I'm going to save that for another episode. I don't want to get into too many different topics. So today, I just want people to learn how to change their identity, because this causes a lot of confusion, because they think if they think positive thoughts or force that, it's going to change their identity or just suppress their emotions. No, you got to let your emotions flow. But when you make them flow, this is really important. You bring yourself to peace, neutrality. Okay. The reason why I don't say happy and joy, because There are times that you may go through something and you know that if you try to feel happy, you're forcing it and you're just not being true to yourself. So Source, God itself, knows when you're being authentic or not. But when there's a situation you don't prefer, you can take a deep breath and you can choose to bring yourself to peace, you know? And this is so important because I challenge you to expand your awareness that when there's a situation, let's say it's purchasing a car and you feel nervous, okay? Don't think about the deal at first. I want you to actually reflect back on your inner self and think to yourself, what am I broadcasting and what state of being am I at when being faced with this decision? Because right there is a critical point. So a lot of people are reacting to the decision, but if they brought the awareness more to the state of being that they are in which the circumstance are being faced with, that right there is a breakthrough. Because when you want something or you're pressured and you feel it, you're going to have a different response when you're operating a higher vibration or more clarity. So that's why it's good to say, you know, even though I may think this may be the best thing to do right now, I'm not at the right vibration to do this. So that's where you make the effort to go and walk off or even come back another time, because your perception is everything. If we go to the observer effect, just the way you observe something at the state of being you're at determines what probable outcomes can happen. And we can save that for another opportunity. I don't want to go into so many different paths because people will get confused. But if we understand anything today, I hope all of you understand how important it is for, you know, knowing what to do with thoughts and emotions and creating a space in which you're aware of it and you're not your thoughts or emotions, meaning your identity is not that. And by doing that, that's where we really change our identity. Now, I practiced this for some time and I've gotten to a point where it's visually, it's really entertaining in a sense where there's a circumstance I don't like, but because I know I put a perception that everything is working out for me, it's for my better good, I don't label it bad. I do feel the feeling. So if I feel anxious about something or it's not something I prefer, I take a deep breath, I let it flow, and now I smile and I say, I'm grateful for this experience because I know it's needed for my growth. Because for whatever blessing I'm meant to receive, I need to be able to handle this before I move on to the next thing or the next thing that's meant for me. I need to make room. So now I'm getting opportunity to reveal what it is myself and be aware of this. So this is great. So now it's funny because I can sit there in silence and I know my nervous system, I feel it, but I'm not letting it hijack myself. So I'm going to look calm, but I feel it going through my body. And my ego self wants to go react to it, whether it's call someone, text, or get involved. And I just laugh. I'm like, the old me would have done this, thinking that's right. But now I can see them as separate. Because the thing we need to know is that your ego wants what it's familiar, even if it's a toxic relationship or it wants what it's familiar with. It stops you from growth. Your nervous system is built for survival, so it doesn't like change either. But your soul, your identity, who you are, wants to experience life. So there we feel this resistance, this bandwidth right here. So with that being said, when you can actually create that space, you have awareness that say, okay, the nervous system is doing what it's trained to do because that's what it does. And the ego is, I call it the old man because it's something that doesn't like anything new and only wants what it's familiar with and stops growth. So I'm already aware of what they're doing and I say, it's so easy. I just do the opposite. So while the ego wants to react, I consciously make the effort not to do what I would do in my egoic self, which is respond right away, text somebody or react. And by that is self-mastery. Now, in science, when you are, working with your thoughts and you can think about your own thoughts in relative terms, they call this the highest form of intelligence, which is metacognition. Metacognition. So that is a more relative term for people that maybe can't relate to the esoteric teachings or stuff that is more ancient. So that is one of theorized to be one of the highest forms of intelligence. So when you can think about your own thoughts. But the thing is, you can practice this, and you can do this every day. And this will really help you get the new identity, because we see the motion of thoughts. You imagine something, you hold it, you have an emotion, and then people just wait, and they don't realize if something's not coming to reality, they have doubt and fear. All these negative beliefs and emotions are blocking them from getting them to where they need to be, or collapsing the timeline in which they receive something in their reality. So I want to let you guys know, if you have a desire, it is from the Creator, but it's where you operate it from. This desire, are you doing it to get money, to prove something to someone? Because where you're operating from makes a big difference. So if you're doing it just to get money or prove something to do it, that's your egoic self. But when you do it because you embrace the challenge and it's for your soul's expansion, that is aligned with God's will. So I must make sure, to you guys know that's important. So I don't want anybody to be confused to think that somebody says their desire is not of them. Now, of course, if it's to harm somebody, that's not a source, okay? I think that's common sense. We don't have to get into that. So there's so much that I want to go into and other things, but today it's all about how to change your identity. And by doing this, you're going to be more aware of more opportunities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase these right now. When we have better thoughts and better emotions, we are operating at a higher frequency, okay? Everybody see that? It's, there's a glare, and, it's not, there we go, that's better. This is representative of the emotional frequency chart, okay? One of the best things we can operate consistently, because reality itself collapses when there's neutrality. Okay, so what people can do for their emotions is that anytime they feel fear, anger, all that, whatever it is, fear, you need to bring yourself to courage. You're aware of these emotions, you let them flow, but you consciously make the effort to bring yourself to a higher vibration. And that's what they teach in the Kabbalion. So you understand the laws of energy, that whatever happened, happened. We understand. It's there in your 3D reality. But we're not going to let it bring us down, because where we hold our vibration, reality will reflect that to us. So that's really important. And it also goes into the observer effect. So when we observe something, okay, how we observe something determines how it collapses. So if we view something at this perspective, that means it's going to have a more favorable outcome of more probable outcomes that are representative of that, okay? Now, if we bring ourselves to a higher consciousness, where it's neutrality, peace, whatever it is, we understand that when we do that, it collapses into things that are more reflective of our higher self. And I'm going to bring this closer to you so you guys understand. So how we observe something on the state of being affects how things collapse into reality. And this science experiment for that was the observer effect. And it's something that Einstein, he couldn't stand because it, didn't cooperate with the laws of, physical reality. He couldn't stand that when you observed a particle, it behaved differently as when you did not observe it. So now there's a science of things that they apply to real life called quantum mechanics, and it's derived from quantum physics. And quantum physics is very, very close to Kabbalah, which is really interesting how all these things are intertwined. But we can get into that in other episodes. But I wanted to make sure that you guys knew the mechanics of self-mastery, which is, being aware of your thoughts and emotions and how to use them as tools. And I think that if many people really practice this, there'd be a lot less people in jail. And especially if they knew that reality always is a mirror to who you are. If you know that it's not about other people, it's about me, that takes accountability to you, less blaming other people, and less victimhood mentality. Therefore, you're going to experience reality differently because you're broadcasting a better signal, and reality always has to confirm who you are. And if you really want to understand that, try a bad day. So that's a really good relative example. Because some of this can be a bit much. I understand, especially if it's your first time viewing that. Okay? So you have a day, let's say here. Let's say he's holding a ice cream cone, okay? Okay, so right here we have a gentleman with an ice cream cone, okay? Cool. He starts out his day neutral. He's not happy, he's not excited, just a regular day, okay? But then he trips on a banana, okay? Then he falls down, okay? Ice cream goes everywhere, boom. Now, what happens if he gives that any energy or complains or lets that get to him after the effect? Now, reality, let's say that brings him down here, reality has to confirm that by giving him more events to confirm. So it could be something, now he trips and falls, he complains, he bumps into somebody, he gets bad news, and that's how reality works, because reality is a mirror. It's constantly mirroring us. So that's why awareness is the key to everything. What am I broadcasting? So for him not to experience a bad day, the best thing he can do is I'm going to give him a beanbag, and he's just going to read a book. So the best thing he can do is when something happens, take a seat, and he can, one, aware of the energy, let it pass, neutralize it. So let's say he fell, he lost his ice cream cone. Okay, it's not fun. The best thing he can do in that moment, if he's bothered, is to take a seat, take a deep breath, let it flow, and tell himself internally, it's okay, everything's fine, and not give it any more energy. And by that moment, once he does that, he's going to experience a completely different day than as opposed to complaining and being bothered by that, because if he stayed in that lower vibration, reality has to confirm more reasons for him to be in that state of being. That doesn't mean by operating a higher vibration, you're just going to be happy all the time and this and that. It just means for the most part, your identity is going to be someone who's peaceful in most of things that go on in your world. So even if there's chaos and you are peaceful, you're going to experience much less chaos, and things are going to be more resolved to reflect who you are than somebody who has a lot of chaos inside of them. So I hope this makes it easy, and I hope this stuff clears up a lot of the mystical stuff, because I know if you were to look at things like Kabbalah, it's very deep. You could learn about it forever. But when we apply these things, we can see how reality changes for us. I would love to go on, but I think this is all for today, because I think most people create themselves a mental prison, and by practicing these techniques, they can free themselves and create space for their expansion in consciousness and knowing who they really are, restoring power back to them, and experience a better reality, and reality for that to reflect who they really are and experience a better life. Everyone, this is my first video on this topic of consciousness, expansion, and everything. I really hope I explained this well. I really love to help people, and I want people to reclaim their power and realize that they're more than what they think they are, and they can do more, and that we're meant to be a co-creator and do these things. And when we master these skills, we allow flow. So instead of all these blockages, we're allowing things to come into reality, and we're, cutting off the resistance. Till next time, if you guys have any comments, critiques, things that I can explain better, please let me know. But until then, everybody have a good night. Adios.